Okay guys, so a little bit further on the wiring. So I've basically got my permanent 12 volt. I used the one from the W210, it's already lugged up, the cable looks in very good condition. So I went with that, used that one there, and then I brought through my different cables here. So I've got black for dash light, blue ignition, is it? It'll be written on it anyway. Yeah, ignition glow. Okay, so that's coming off the 15 terminal in the over voltage protection relay. So the over voltage protection relay is back here, and basically you have a 30 feed coming in, right? So that's your permanent battery feed, similar to this. They're all 30 feeds in the Mercedes systems. They're called 30 and 30A. And then basically you've got a 15, which is your signal. So that's your signal to here, and there's a bridge inside in the glow relay and allow the 30 feed direct from the battery to it. And it'll obviously, it also takes in these kind of interfere with that. So this temperature one here will interfere with that. So that if that's getting a feed, it'll stop. It'll basically make a loop between your ignition and it, and then you won't glow. You won't get a glow sequence at all. So that's my temp there. So then also, something I kind of left out of the ELR system when I was looking at it previously is it actually takes a feed from here as well, which is your 87, which is your after your ignition on feed coming to basically your ELR relay here. So that ELR relay then takes, that's basically, let me see if I can find it here. That is my two cables here, grey being the signal, let's say. So that grey, I believe, is going to be green and blue. No, sorry, red and blue. So if you're looking at your ELR system, when you get around to it, red and blue is 87 pin of your over voltage over here. And then the other one goes out to your signal in here, your 12 volt in here, and then you just have a ground going back. It is I think when they put that brown with a white stripe, it's a ground that goes through a unit, not ground straight to chassis. So that's why your brown, you'll see a brown and white, I think, or brown and blue that'll come here, which means it's a switched ground, basically a relayed ground, or relayed negative, or ground, whatever way you want to look at that. So that is everything I need there at the moment. There is another part of that relay, and I actually never looked at it. I probably should look at it. I don't think it's relevant. I think all it really needs is it needs a temperature input. You got your dash light out, that's just for yourself. You don't actually need that. And then you have your 87 or your 15 pin coming off the over voltage relay just to make the bridge the connection between your, or always on. So that's that. That's all ready to receive the box. I'm going to mount the box probably somewhere here. I don't know if I'll pull that out. I may well do, but that's neither here nor there. I've removed the J-tronic relay, and I've removed the or J-tronic ECU and the fuel pump relay. So then I just start cutting out stuff out the loom, and I don't want to cut it all the way back because, you know, there's certain times you might need it. So what I've done is I've cut. You know, you might find need for some of these things, or you might find that if you cut them right back, and then suddenly you've got an issue or something. You know, like when it comes to the aircon. And the main issue I'm having, actually, guys, when it comes to knowing about that, is that every drawings I can find online are for the Californian cars or the American cars that they do have slightly different systems in here to be compliant with CO2 emissions and stuff like that at the time. So while they're great to have them, they're just not the exact car this was, and I have found loads of differences. But anyway, so what I've done is I've just cut them back, and then what I've been doing is throwing the plugs with those tails still attached into here, and then as such I will be able to then match up my colours at a later stage, and it won't be a difficult thing to solder in a new connection there or crimp in a new connection. So then the only thing I'm going to leave on here is I'm going to leave on the full length of this signal, which I believe that the aircon you might need that just for your ELR system to be able to recognize the aircon's on and up your RPM at a later stage. That's not for today or for the initial part of this project. And then I have these, which I've actually marked aircon, so I've obviously took these off the condenser. I think that's the condenser dryer there, or something along that line, pressure switch possibly. And I haven't looked into the aircon, as you know. And then I believe that's just off the actual aircon compressor unit. And then I'm keeping this one because I think that also might be somehow linked to the aircon system, and then I'm just leaving that ground in there. What I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to take the plugs, I'm going to photograph these and I kind of archive them in my phone or on my my online storage for all this, so I don't lose it, your Gmail. So I think I'm going to pin these out, so I'm going to basically take off the plug but to photograph them so I know which cables go to which. Leave the crimp or the soldered on terminals with a bit of heat sleeving over them, or maybe I'll use I might show you a thing later on, which is the Hellermann rubbers. They're pretty nifty things, but I might throw that over it, and then I might throw a heat sleeving over that, and then the same for all these, so that it's not just quite as bulky a rig. I'll remove the heat shrinking as well, and then that means I'll be able to dress them down and then attach them to the plastics for the the glow plug piece that goes in here. I'll show you that in a second. So then all I'm going to be using is that's my dash temperature signal as well, so that has to be terminated in, and I'll just show you that now. So where did I put the piece? If I can find it. Jesus Christ, there we go. So this is the W210 glow plug setup, and the reason I went with that is the wiring harness is in perfect condition on this, whereas the one from the w124 was all degraded and ruined. So there was no point in trying to utilize that at all. What I did find with this one also was that the plugs are smaller, so you do need to then change your glow plugs inside the engine bay, or inside the engine, keep the ones in the 210, not use the W124s basically, is all. So that's that. I have one here that I actually accidentally cut off. These things happen, so I had to resolder a new joint, and now I'm going to put the fitting back on that. But that is everything I need there. I have the temperature plug in here, and then I have my two spurs coming off, or two cables going off that, so that will be my ground, and my earth that will tie into that sensor, or that one single cable I have there. So I'm gonna have to run another ground for that. Yeah, and then what I did here, guys, I was having a big issue. That's the old style plug on the new style loom. I had big issues trying to do this with a soldering iron. Basically, the soldering iron was just not getting up the temperature. It was ended up heat soaking the cables, and it was causing more issues than anything. So what I did was I actually used, believe it or not, and it sounds a bit dodgy, I used a 230 240 volts heat gun, and that just dropped those pins off. So let me see if I can find one of them pins just to show you what I'm talking about. There should be one here somewhere in my pile of stuff. No, find them. There's the copper pieces coming off it. There we go. So that's your individual pins inside the this is on the older Merc system. Your individual pin inside of most of their plugs. And it's basically a little cup, it's a little bowl here filled with solder, and then you have your cable can pass right through it. So basically what I did was I stripped back the cable, I heated these up, and they just, like that, using gravity, they just drop right off. Heat them back up with the heat gun, pass your cable through, fill that whole area with solder until it starts leaching out into the cable, and then or into the wire, and then just cut it off there nice and flush and fit it back in. That's the best solution I've found for it. I'm sure there's loads of other possibilities. I'm not great at soldering, so I don't really get too into it because I'm not that capable. So that's that. I'm gonna have to do the same for the signal cable or signal feeds for that glow plug relay. So I'm gonna have to do the same to that loom for that. And then I think that's going to be everything on the wiring side of it sorted. Sorry, the alternator. I have to get around to the alternator. The alternator is a 3-pin coming off the. So the alternator on setup here is a 3-pin setup on the original w124 M103 engine, and I think it's a 2-pin on this. I need to fully dig into the alternator here and just figure it out. But that's pretty much it. I'm going to have to. I've not done much work with the alternator wiring in the past or anything like that, so that is a learning curve in itself. And then the only other thing is the oil. I have to make a gasket for this still. I'm waiting on that material to come in. Everything's really delayed in Ireland at the moment. Like you can request, get something shipped to you, and it might not get to you for weeks. I have a banjo set, or banjo hydraulic hose or oil hose that I need to set up for here to here. So that'll be done today actually, because I have one half of it done. I've marked it out there. You can see that red paint. So the next one will be crimped on this evening, and then that would be an oil feed for the turbo sorted out. Then the oil return, I can probably sort that out as well at the same time, depending, you know. But and then that will be my concern is not about the gasket. Obviously, I don't want to have to take turbo off again and all that kind of thing. I have to put the gasket in. My concern is that I don't want to be cranking the engine without having oil going through that turbo. I have given it a few turns. There's no fuel in it or anything like that, so there's no real spinning. It's just cranking off the starter, and it does turn over nicely and everything like that. That's just me trying to confirm when I remove cables and stuff like that from the system, or when I remove glow plug or fuel pump relays or J-tron, I think that the car will actually still try and start. Anyway, that's it for now, guys. I will check in with you in a bit when I have a bit more done. Cheers, bye. Alrighty guys, so just quickly, I was talking about the Hellermann rubbers for the loom. So let me see if I can get, there's a neat one there. So basically, sorry if you can see that, there we go. It's just like a little rubber that fits over. There is, so what that one is that each pin gets its own Hellermann rubber, and then one goes over the two of them. Let me see. That goes over that was just a little lug set up. I'm hoping this is focusing for you. There we go. It's hard for the camera to recognize it. And then, so it's hard to focus on it. And then that one, that's the chunkiest of them all. That was the 3-pin plug. So the Hellermann goes over each individual one, and then one goes over the entirety of that. And just to give you an idea of what it is, it's sort of similar. Agricultural people will recognize this straight away, but it's only similar to that. It isn't the same thing. This is obviously for electrical work. So basically you have a 3-pin pliers, and then you can expand out this rubber like that. That goes over and stretches over the terminal, and you pull it back. It's basically for grouping. It's not necessarily for, it is a good insulator, but that's not its main use. Most people use it just for grouping together a sheathing if they're cutting into it, you know, grouping the cables together. But it is actually an insulator. So they'll all basically get a heat shrink over that again, and then they'll get wrapped into their own loom coming down this way, and that loom will then just affix to the bottom of the glow plug plastic one and be tucked in nicely. Or possibly I might try and find a location for it in here. Either way, it'll be put away neatly for the time that I might actually utilize it. Alright guys, so just a very quick update. I have my glow plug loom in, and there's my glow plug relay from the w124 piping around just here, coming across. That's your w210 glow plug setup there, mounted at its factory points. And then basically what I did was I cut the cable ties here and actually cable tied, remember those few different the loom that I was talking about previously, the ones that I wanted to keep, I just cable tied them around underneath. And as I say, they look pretty good. From an angle here you can see a couple of, that's the area where all the actual plugs are depinned and just, you know, Hellermann rubbers over them, then heat shrink over that, and then wrapped up just to keep them from ever having an issue. There's no low point there. And then basically, as you can see it back here, you've got your old original looms just come in here, and then you have your glow plug conduit just there. Then you have your glow plugs coming out. We have the ELR system all inside of there. We have the two different thermostats, or you know, whatever you want to call them, thermostats, coming up to here and coming through. Then you can see a whole nest of wires here at the moment. So the next thing for me to do is I have to, that grey and red. So I kind of made a mistake earlier when I was talking. I was saying that there was one of those wires from the glow plug relay that I didn't need to use. That's not actually the case. This is my ignition on, and I just have it indicated there with just to change it, because I only have a few different colours of cable. I've just put red heat shrink in different locations around it. So that's going to go across with the black cable, which is your dash light, and those two have to go through to the binnacle and to the actual ignition on. What else? Oh yeah, then I've got my earths. So my earths, all I have is your standard yellow crimp on connection for the lug, which is perfectly fine. It comes with a little insulated cover and everything like that, ideal. Now that only takes a 6mm bolt, M6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill out this area here. These are all 10mm here. So I'm going to drill out an area here. I'm going to put a washer down for that. Maybe I'll just set it in so it's neat. Put a washer down for that. Send this through. Put a washer down for that. I'm going to use a proper size braid. This thing will draw a serious amount of current through it. This is really strong. So I'm gonna end up just heat shrinking this, so it won't look as pretty as this, but it'll have the two lugs either side. I'll pop one on one of these here, and the other one will go on top of that washer, sandwiched by the nut, and then all of my or sandwiched by the bolt, and all of my earth will run off that. So basically just linking it out using its copper, copper link. So that's so far. The next thing to do after this will be, obviously, there's a couple of resetting up. I have to do the turbo oil feed, I have to do the turbo return for the oil, and I have to set up the instrument binnacle, change out my instrument binnacle, and I also have to set up my ignition switch and then my throttle cable. So there's still, even though it's very close, there's still a fair bit to do. Anyway guys, I'll report back in a little bit.